The Kthar Alliance fleet cut through the endless void of space, the command ship Supreme Logic, leading the formation with surgical precision. The vessel's sleek, metallic hull reflected starlight in cold, calculated patterns as it traversed the uncharted territories of what humans called the Dark Rim. Executor Vril stood on the command bridge, his tall, slender form motionless as he observed the tactical displays through four compound eyes that processed information at speeds incomprehensible to lesser species. Analysis of Sector 47 Beta complete, reported a subordinate officer, their voice a perfect monotone. No resource signatures of sufficient value detected. Vril acknowledged with a slight inclination of his exoskeletal head. The Kthar, a race of biomechanical beings who had evolved beyond the inefficiencies of pure organic life millennia ago, valued nothing more than logic and efficiency. Their mission to survey and map the Dark Rim was proceeding with predictable precision, cataloging resources, identifying potential civilizations for assessment, and determining which might be worthy of assimilation or elimination based on their contribution to universal efficiency. Executor called Science Director Xyler from her station. Unlike Vril's imposing presence, Xyler's form was more compact, adapted for analytical work rather than command. Sensors have detected an anomalous object at coordinates 339.27 by 114.58. Vril turned his attention to the main viewing screen. Magnify and analyze. The screen shifted to display a distant object floating alone in the void, a vessel of some kind, its design crude by Kthar standards. Angular hull sections, primitive propulsion systems, and what appeared to be manual navigation equipment marked it clearly as human in origin. Designation on the hull reads Odyssey, Xyler reported, her tone betraying a hint of scientific curiosity that would have earned disapproval in less valuable personnel. Structure shows significant damage. Power signatures minimal. It appears to be adrift. Vril processed this information instantly. A relic of an underdeveloped species. Surprising to find it this far into the Dark Rim, beyond known human territories. His secondary appendages tapped a sequence into his personal console. Prepare for deep scan protocols. This presents an opportunity to gather technological and biological data on humans with minimal risk. I find it curious, Xyler ventured, that a human vessel would be so far from their established territories, particularly in such a state of disrepair. Logic suggests there must be a reason for its presence here. Humans rarely operate on logic, Science Director, Vril replied dismissively. More likely an abandoned exploration vessel or a failed colonization attempt. Their propensity for inefficient expansion is well documented. As the Supreme Logic moved closer to the derelict human ship, more details became visible. The Odyssey was larger than initially assessed, approximately 400 meters in length. Its hull bore the scars of numerous impacts and what appeared to be weapons damage, though the patterns did not match any known weapon signatures in the Kthar database. Initiate full spectrum scan, Vril commanded. I want complete analysis of hull composition, internal structure, energy signatures, and any biological traces. Brilliant beams of energy extended from the Kthar vessel, enveloping the Odyssey in a web of scanning technology. Data began flowing into the Kthar systems, appearing on screens throughout the command bridge. Xyler frowned, an unusual expression for a Kthar, as she reviewed the preliminary results. Executor, I am detecting inconsistencies in the scan data. Explain, Vril commanded, moving to her station. The hull composition. Xyler manipulated the controls, highlighting sections of the analysis. It does not precisely match any known human alloy. There appear to be trace elements of organic nanostructures integrated into the metal, self-repairing components, but of a design we have not encountered before. Human technology is primitive but occasionally inventive, Vril dismissed. Continue the scan. Energy signatures are also anomalous, Xyler continued. They are minimal as expected from a derelict vessel, but the patterns are complex. They do not follow expected degradation models. It's as if the power systems are in a state of dormancy rather than failure. Vril's interest was piqued despite his dismissal. Deepen the scan. Focus on internal structures and any signs of crew compartments. The scanning beams intensified, penetrating deeper into the human vessel. The Cthar systems processed the returning data, constructing detailed schematics of the Odyssey's interior. What they revealed caused even the disciplined Cthar bridge crew to display signs of confusion. Executor, Xyler's voice had lost its usual measured cadence. The scans are detecting complex biological components integrated throughout the ship's mechanical structure. Organic circuitry runs parallel to conventional wiring. Highly modified cellular clusters appear to be replacing damaged mechanical components. And the life signs. She paused, recalibrating her instruments. They are contradictory, showing both cellular decay and extremely rapid regeneration simultaneously. For the first time, Vril moved closer to examine the data directly. Could this be contamination? Perhaps some form of spaceborne parasitic life that has infected the derelict. That was my initial hypothesis, Xyler admitted. But the integration is too systematic, too purposeful. This is not random growth or contamination. The biological components appear to be working in concert with the mechanical systems. A junior analyst interrupted. Science director, we're detecting data storage systems still active within the vessel. Attempting to access now. Vril considered this development. Proceed with caution. If this is indeed some form of advanced human biotechnology, we should gather all available information before determining our course of action. The Cthar systems easily bypass the basic security protocols of the human vessel, accessing fragmented logs and records stored in the Odyssey's damaged databanks. The information began appearing on the command bridge's main screen: broken audio recordings, corrupted video footage, text logs with missing sections. Beginning chronological reconstruction, Xyler announced as her systems attempted to organize the fragmented data. The earliest log showed a standard human exploration mission. The Odyssey had been dispatched to investigate unusual stellar phenomena at the edge of known space. The crew appeared typical: a captain, science officers, engineers, medical personnel. Their mission parameters were unremarkable, their equipment standard for human exploration vessels of their era. Then came entries documenting their encounter with something at the edge of a previously uncharted region of space. The logs became fragmented here, with critical information missing. Whatever they had discovered had prompted them to venture farther into unknown territory, beyond their original mission parameters. Later logs revealed a growing sense of urgency. The captain's journal entries spoke of pursuing something, or perhaps fleeing from something, though the exact nature of their objective remained unclear. They had encountered extreme cosmic phenomena, radiation storms, gravitational anomalies, space-time distortions that human science had never documented before. They ventured into regions of space that should have been lethal to organic life, Xyler observed. Their vessel was not designed to withstand such conditions. The logs that followed documented the crew's increasingly desperate measures to survive. It began with conventional repairs and adaptations: rerouting power, sealing off damaged sections, rationing supplies. But as conditions worsened and their mission extended far beyond its intended duration, their methods became more extreme. Medical logs detailed radical genetic modifications the crew began performing on themselves to withstand the harsh environments they encountered. Engineering records showed improvised cybernetic implants, the integration of ship systems directly into human biology. There were references to experimental nanotechnology, unstable but effective, used to merge crew members with ship systems when conventional solutions failed. This is highly irregular, Xyler stated, her usual scientific detachment wavering. They appear to have systematically modified themselves and their vessel far beyond any known human capabilities. For what purpose? Vril demanded, his tone betraying the first hints of concern. A final set of logs provided the answer: survival at any cost. The captain's last coherent entry spoke not of mission objectives or scientific discovery, but of a single-minded determination to endure. "We will not be defeated by the void," the human had recorded, voice strained but resolute. "If we cannot survive as we are, we will become what we must. The Odyssey will carry on, one way or another." Psychological analyses of the logs revealed mental states that the Cathar considered chaotic, illogical, perhaps even insane by their standards. Yet there was a terrible effectiveness to the humans' desperate measures. They had survived conditions that should have been impossible, driven by emotions that the Cathar had long ago bred out of their species: grief, pain, wild hope, and an irrational resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. The command bridge of the supreme logic had grown unnaturally quiet. Officers exchanged glances, an unusual behavior for the typically focused Cathar. "Executor," Xyler finally spoke, her voice lower than usual. "I believe we should reconsider our approach. This is not merely unusual technology we are examining. This is desperation weaponized in a way we have not encountered before." "Your assessment borders on a logical fear," Science Director Vril replied, though without his usual conviction. "However sophisticated their modifications, they remain merely humans who—" "Executor," interrupted a sensor officer, "the human vessel is showing increased cellular activity. Our scanning process appears to have stimulated some form of repair response. The organic components are reacting to our presence." On the view screen, subtle movements could now be detected across the Odyssey's hull. Areas damaged by micrometeorite impacts were visibly shifting, organic material filling in the gaps like scar tissue forming over a wound. "Fascinating," Xyler whispered. "It's responding at a cellular level, like an immune system reacting to an invasive presence." Vril straightened to his full height. "Continue the deep scan. Focus on core data systems and living quarters. I want to know exactly what we're dealing with." The Cathar AI systems completed their comprehensive analysis of the Odyssey's data, compiling a report that appeared simultaneously on all command bridge terminals. The conclusion was so unexpected, so contrary to Cathar understanding of biological limitations, that it momentarily froze all activity on the bridge. "This cannot be accurate," Vril finally stated, though his tone lacked conviction. "All verification protocols have been executed," Xyler confirmed, her voice barely audible. "The conclusion stands. The Odyssey's crew no longer exists as individuals. They have completely merged with their vessel, creating a single collective consciousness, a unified biomechanical entity designed to face whatever threat or environment they encountered. The ship doesn't carry the crew. The ship is the crew." As if understanding had somehow triggered awakening, the Odyssey suddenly pulsed with newfound energy. Power signatures that had been dormant surged to life. The hull began to move more actively, organic structures glowing with bioluminescent light. "Defensive protocols," Vril commanded, instinctively recognizing the signs of a threat despite his inability to categorize it within known parameters. The Cathar vessels shifted into combat formation, weapons systems charging. But the Odyssey did not respond with conventional attacks. Instead, it released pulses of energy unlike anything in the Cathar database, waves that seemed to distort local reality, bending space and consciousness in ways that defied causal logic. The effects on the Cathar were immediate and devastating. Their highly ordered, logical systems were overwhelmed by data that followed no recognizable pattern. Officers who prided themselves on perfect emotional control found themselves experiencing primitive fear as images and emotions from the Odyssey's logs were projected directly into their minds. They saw what the crew had seen, the unimaginable phenomena at the edge of reality that had driven them to such extremes. They felt what the crew had felt, the pain of transformation, the loss of individual identity, the iron determination to survive. And beneath it all, a wordless warning about something deeper in the darkness, something the humans had either discovered or fled from, something that made their terrible transformation seem like a rational choice by comparison. On the command bridge, officers clutched at their heads, some dropping to their knees. The ship's systems flickered, logical processes disrupted by the non-causal nature of the attack. Vril remained standing through sheer force of will, though his exoskeletal frame trembled visibly. For the first time in his centuries of existence, he faced something that could not be defeated through logical analysis or superior technology, a biological and psychological chaos that had transcended the limitations he had always believed were universal constants. "All vessels, emergency withdrawal," he commanded, his voice unsteady. "Abandon all collection and neutralization protocols. Priority is to escape the influence radius of the human vessel." The Kthar fleet began a hasty retreat, their usually perfect formation now ragged and disorganized. Ship systems malfunctioned unpredictably. Officers struggled to perform basic functions as their minds grappled with concepts and emotions they had no framework to process. The Odyssey did not pursue. It remained in place, its hybrid biological-mechanical systems pulsing with energy, watching as the Kthar fled for what they now recognized as something far more dangerous than a primitive species, an evolutionary wildcard that could adapt beyond all reasonable limits. In the command quarters of the Supreme Logic, Xyler compiled her final report while the fleet retreated at maximum speed. Her analysis was comprehensive and disturbing. Humans, when pushed to extremes, possessed biological and psychological adaptation capabilities far beyond Kthar understanding. They were not merely a technological species, but a terrifying biological unknown. Their adaptation abilities and survival instinct were weapons in themselves, more powerful in some ways than any technology. Recommendation, she concluded, classification, apex-level hazard, unpredictable biology. Protocol, avoid at all costs. Research from distance only, no direct contact. The Dark Rim sector should be marked as prohibited territory for all Kthar vessels until further analysis can be conducted from safe observational distance. The Kthar Supreme Council received the report through instantaneous communication channels. Their response was swift and unprecedented. Immediate acceptance of all recommendations without debate or logical analysis. A response driven by something the Kthar had not experienced in millennia: fear. As the Kthar fleet departed, carrying with it a new and harsh understanding of the universe, the Odyssey continued its solitary journey through the void. It remained a silent monument to the truth that logic is not always the only or strongest path to survival. Its existence had forever changed how the Kthar would view life in the galaxy. The Supreme Logic moved through space at maximum speed, its systems still recovering from the encounter. On the command bridge, Executor Vril stood motionless before the main view screen, watching the stars streak by as the ship accelerated away from the Dark Rim. His posture, usually perfect, showed subtle signs of strain. "Executor," Xyler approached cautiously, "the fleet has reached safe distance. All vessels report recovery of primary systems, though some unexplained anomalies persist in the more complex computational arrays." Vril did not immediately respond, his compound eyes fixed on the view screen as if still seeing the Odyssey. "What troubles you, Executor?" Xyler ventured, an unusually direct question for a Kthar. "A miscalculation," Vril finally replied. "A fundamental error in our understanding. The humans, not just the humans." Vril turned to face her. "Our conception of adaptation itself. We have always equated evolution with logic. The most efficient solutions naturally selected through time. We believed our path, the systematic replacement of inefficient biology with superior technology, represented the inevitable course of advanced evolution. And now," Xyler prompted when Vril fell silent again. "Now, I must consider that chaos may have evolutionary advantages we have not accounted for." Vril's secondary appendages twitched in discomfort at the thought. Those humans should have perished. By any logical assessment, the conditions they faced exceeded their biological tolerances by factors beyond calculation. Yet they adapted through means that defied logical progression. They did not improve their technology to survive. They transformed their very nature. In the medical bay of the Supreme Logic, Cathar specialists were treating the crew members most severely affected by the Odyssey's influence. Unlike physical injuries, which Cathar medicine could repair with precise efficiency, these were wounds in the orderly thought patterns that defined Cathar consciousness. Their mental patterns show chaotic disruption, reported medical director Zenith to Xyler as they observed the treatment. They experienced something our evolutionary path has not prepared them for. Emotions, Xyler stated simply. Zenith's posture registered surprise. A primitive, evolutionary trait. Our species discarded emotional responses 12,000 cycles ago. And yet, Xyler countered, the humans weaponized them. They turned fear, pain, desperation, and hope into a survival mechanism more adaptable than our logical processes. When faced with conditions that exceeded their physical capabilities, they used emotional drives to push beyond established biological limitations. Are you suggesting, Zenith's voice lowered to ensure privacy, that our evolutionary path may have eliminated valuable traits? I am suggesting, Xyler replied carefully, that our understanding of efficiency may be incomplete. Meanwhile, in the secure data core of the Supreme Logic, specialized analysts were attempting to process the information gathered from the Odyssey before their hasty retreat. The task proved unusually challenging. The data itself seemed to resist logical categorization, as if the chaotic nature of its origins had somehow been encoded into the information structure. This defies standard analysis parameters, reported lead analyst Kix to Executive Vril. The biological components of a human vessel operated on principles that contradict established models of cellular function. Their modifications should have resulted in catastrophic genetic breakdown, yet they achieved a sustainable symbiosis with mechanical systems. Could we replicate this technology? Vril inquired. Kix's response was immediate and firm. Inadvisable, Executor. The process appears to be driven by psychological factors our species no longer possesses. The human logs indicate that extreme emotional states were crucial catalysts for their biological transformations. Without those emotional components, the process becomes unpredictable and likely non-viable. Vril absorbed this information with growing disquiet. The Cathar had always viewed emotions as evolutionary weaknesses, inefficient processes that clouded judgment and wasted valuable cognitive resources. Their own evolution had systematically eliminated emotional responses in favor of pure logical analysis. It had never occurred to them that emotions might serve as powerful adaptive triggers, pushing biological systems beyond their normal limitations when logical processes would have simply accepted failure. In her laboratory, Xyler conducted her own private analysis of cellular samples collected from the Odyssey's hull before their retreat. Under molecular scanners, the hybrid cells displayed properties that defied conventional biology. They existed in a state of constant flux, simultaneously breaking down and rebuilding themselves in response to environmental stimuli. Remarkable, she murmured to herself. They've transformed cellular death itself into a renewal mechanism. The implications were profound. Cathar biology was built on principles of perfect efficiency, each cell designed for its specific function, operating with precision until it reached its predetermined end of functionality. The human cells, by contrast, embraced disorder. They died and regenerated in chaotic patterns, adapting their very structure to new challenges without central direction. It was, in the most fundamental sense, the difference between their civilizations. The Cathar pursued perfection through control and logic. Humans, it seemed, achieved survival through chaos and transformation. As the Cathar fleet continued its retreat from the Dark Rim, they transmitted their findings to the Supreme Council. The response was unprecedented, a complete redesignation of human threat assessment and the establishment of new protocols for any future contact. Humans are to be classified as a level alpha evolutionary anomaly, the directive stated. Their capacity for biological and psychological adaptation exceeds all current models. Direct interference with human development is now prohibited. Observation will continue from safe distance only. for a species that had built its civilization on the principle that logical superiority would inevitably triumph. This was a profound concession. It acknowledged what many Cathar were still struggling to accept, that their perfect logical path might not be the only route to advanced evolution, and that the chaotic adaptability of humans represented a form of advancement they had not predicted and could not easily counter. In the void of space, far behind them now, the Odyssey continued its enigmatic journey. Whether it was still guided by some fragment of human consciousness, or had evolved into something beyond human, beyond Cathar, beyond any recognized definition of life, remained unknown. What was certain was that it had fundamentally altered the Cathar understanding of the universe and their place within it. The encounter left an indelible mark on Cathar civilization. Their systematic exploration of the galaxy became more cautious, their assumptions about evolutionary superiority less absolute. They began to study emotional responses not merely as primitive traits to be eliminated, but as potential adaptive mechanisms with values they had not previously recognized. Some Cathar scientists even began controversial research into their own evolutionary past, seeking to understand what had been lost in their pursuit of perfect logic. Could selective reintegration of emotional capacity enhance their adaptability without sacrificing their logical strengths? The debate divided the Supreme Council, challenging thousands of years of evolutionary doctrine. Executor Vril, once the embodiment of Cathar logical certainty, became one of the most vocal advocates for this reassessment. His experience with the Odyssey had shown him the limitations of pure logic in a universe that did not always operate according to predictable principles. In his final report before retirement from active service, he wrote words that would have been unthinkable before the encounter. The greatest threat to our continued evolution may not be external forces, but our own certainty. We have perfected logical adaptation at the cost of eliminating chaos-driven transformation. We must consider whether true evolutionary superiority lies not in perfecting a single path, but in maintaining the capacity to create entirely new paths when existing ones prove insufficient. The Odyssey itself passed into Cathar legend, a ghost ship that challenged their most fundamental beliefs, a testament to the unexpected power of a species they had dismissed as primitively emotional and inefficient. In Cathar educational protocols, it became a mandatory case study in the dangers of assumption and the unpredictable nature of evolution across the galaxy. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, the entity that had once been the human starship Odyssey and its crew continued its journey. Perhaps it still carried some essence of humanity within its hybrid structure, the desperate courage, the relentless will to survive, the capacity to transform tragedy into transcendence. Or perhaps it had evolved into something beyond any recognizable definition, a new form of existence born from the crucible of ultimate adversity. What remained certain was that its brief encounter with the Cathar had forever changed how one of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations viewed the universe and the diverse paths of evolution within it. The humans, in their desperate transformation, had unknowingly struck a blow not just for their own survival, but for the recognition that in the infinite cosmos, there is no single path to advancement, no perfect form of existence, only endless adaptation to the ever-changing void. For the Cathar, this was a profound revelation. For the entity that had been the Odyssey, it was simply the continuation of the principle that had driven its transformation. Survival is not about perfection, but about becoming what you need to be when faced with the impossible. In that fundamental truth lay a kind of wisdom even the most logically advanced civilization had yet to fully comprehend.